Hello everyone, it's me Hex, and today we're back for the first time in a few weeks. Sorry about that, I've been sorta busy. Anyway, without further ado, today's what if Deku had Dreamscape? Now, this quirk is kinda complicated, so I won't explain all of it at the moment. We'll get bits and pieces throughout the what if. I'm quite excited about this one. I haven't seen anyone else do it, so I hope you guys enjoy. We're gonna start this off as almost a mystery. Inko is laying in the hospital, holding her child. She smiles as suddenly she's knocked out. She wakes suddenly a few moments later with her eyes open wide, and the child in her arms, looking up at her, smiling as he giggles. Something odd just happened, and this child seems to have learned from it. Whatever that was, Inko will remember that. She will not forget that strange thing that just happened. We time skip for 3 years. On his 3rd birthday, Izuku is already insanely intelligent. Like, he can speak full sentences, he knows how to run, jump, almost as if he knows something no one else does. But every time that he exerts himself, he gets more tired and more tired, obviously. But the weird part about it is his tiredness, to say, his exhaustion doesn't go away. So the more he uses the quirk, he doesn't know, or the more that he does this strange thing that he's been doing since he was a child, the more tired he gets until eventually he collapses. This has happened about 3 times. After he collapses, he wakes up a few days later. Nothing huge. But they didn't think of anything of it. Well, when he turned 4, he realized the strange thing he's been doing since he was just a mere infant was a quirk. And he knows this because of a coincidence. One, I'll quickly run you guys through. Izuku is standing in a park with 4 other people, or more or less kids in sight. There's Bakugo and his 2 goons, bullying some sort of quirkless kid. Izuku just thinks to himself, "Damn it, I'm too tired for this." And he walks up and asks, "What are you doing, Bakugo?" Bakugo angrily turns towards him and says, "None of your damned business, Deku." Izuku sighs and just walks over to the kid on the ground and picks him up and starts walking away, with no other words. He hears scuffling behind him, and he just ducks, pulling the kid with him. An explosion was thrown over their head, but they stand back up and continue walking. This just puts fear into, well, not necessarily fear, but like a shocked awe into the boys, and they stop chasing after the 3 boys, and they stop chasing after the 2 of them, Izuku, or Deku, and the quirkless kid. Weird things like this keep happening throughout the time that we skip yet again until he is 6. It's one day at recess? Recess. Yeah, I think that's what it was. It's been so long since I've had recess. Is it recess? Yeah, I don't know. The time before lunch, we can say. Izuku and that quirkless kid quickly became friends, and throughout the 2 years that they knew each other, grew to be best friends. Him and Izuku are hanging out on the swing, chatting about Pokemon cards and Digimon and all the hip card games and others. They're talking about superheroes when a young blonde boy with angry eyes walks up to them. Izuku, sighing internally, says, "What do you want, Bakugo?" As Bakugo is immediately angry from the tone in Izuku's voice, he says, "We're gonna fight today, no matter what you say, deku," and he just throws a punch. Izuku, not wanting to be hit in the face, falls backwards off of the swing and lands on the ground. After he stands up, he shrugs off the lump on the back of his head from hitting the ground and says, "Damn it, Bakugo, that hurt." Izuku steps back and signals for his friend to follow. Bakugo isn't giving up this easily, however, and he runs forward and throws a fist, or a palm, Izuku noticed, and he quickly realizes he's doing his thing, so Izuku ducks, sliding over to the left and standing up, elbowing the back of Bakugo's neck. Bakugo slumps over. And you guys are asking, how the hell is a 6-year-old this good or intelligent? Well, he awakens his quirk. Well, figures out his quirk is awakened, more or less. As suddenly he's somewhere else. So isn't Bakugo and his friend. Or Bakugo and Izuku's friend. They're all in a dark room with a purple foam, or I guess mist almost, clouding the room. And it's almost hard for the boys to breathe. Except for Izuku. He's perfectly fine. Bakugo starts to cough as Izuku thinks, "I don't want to kill him, what's happening?" The fog disappears. Izuku's confused. He doesn't know what's going on, and he's sort of scared. And then he thinks, "I don't want to be here, I want out." And he leaves Dreamscape as he awakens. He stands up and sees the two boys are still asleep. This confuses him and realizes he knows that they are asleep, not dead or passed out. He thinks that's good, but he doesn't know why or how he knows. Then the teacher walks over and asks, "Izuku Midoriya, what happened here?" He tiredly looks up with bags under his eyes and says, I don't know," and then he falls to the ground, back into a slumber. We do another bit of a time skip to when him and his mother are in the quirk doctor's office. Inko is waiting impatiently, nervous about her son. When she sees her son and the quirk doctor walking out of the room, she is pleased and feels a weight that she didn't know was there get lifted off of her shoulders as Izuku sits down next to her. The doctor starts off immediately, whipping out his noteboard and saying, "Alright, Inko, your son has a very odd quirk." With these words, Inko smiles, knowing that he does have a quirk. And yet again, this is a different quirk doctor than in the anime for reasons. "Your son's quirk is odd. If someone stares him in the eyes, he can pull them into a dream. One of his own, actually. Which, these dreams are basically like a lucid dream, if you know what that is. He can control everything in that world. And yes, he creates a world whenever doing this. It's confusing, and the amount of science that goes into it hurts my head." Ingo's just flabbergasted. "But what do you mean?" hurt your head. Well, it's way more than even us, this well-known business can handle. We might have to put him over to the government so they can figure it out. Inko was immediately worried by this, but, why? It's nothing bad, just, we probably should find out the limits of his quirk, because this could be extremely powerful. Inko nods. Anything else? The doctor realizes he got sidetracked. Yes, when someone is dragged into this world of his, Izuku can temper them, change something about them or something around them. When we were doing tests, we experimented with someone that had a regeneration quirk, thank God. He brought 3 of us into the world with him, and we told him to do simple things, like remove the doctor's arm. That scared him, but when he did it, he didn't want to see gore, so there wasn't even a spot of blood. It was incredible. Then we told him, very simply, to try something else, maybe to form one of his idols, and All Might appeared. That was quite impressive, I would say. And then we told him, what else could he do? We asked him that anyway. He said he didn't know. So we gave him a few more tests. He did things. It seems when he is in this world, he can harm someone in the real world. Anyone that is in that plane with him can be damaged by what he does in there. It's hard to say exactly what is going on, but we feel that he's tempering with the minds like 100%. When he damages someone in that dreamscape, he fools the mind and the cells in the body to thinking it's real, so they actually do what would happen. Say if there was just a shallow cut on someone, he could heal it in the dreamscape, and the person's cells would accelerate and heal them. Or he could make a shallow cut. But you're asking, how is that possible? The cells don't depart on their own. I think he can convince them to. Somehow, the cells separate, like a cut. The cells will separate on their own, and the blood cells are accelerated from the wound as, like a slash would cause. And something that we theorize that could probably be a little bit too much, something that you want to hide from everyone, is he might be able to grab items from this plane and bring it here. It's just a theory for now, but keep him under watch. Bring him back here once a month from now until we can figure it out, because if he can do that, he could cure world hunger. He could make the cure of cancer. Anything he can think of can happen in that world. So, I am ordered by the law to tell the government of what's happening with this boy, but as I am interested in his future as well, I will not. I would keep it under wraps if I were you. Anyway, I and my team will continue theorizing and making new tests. We'll see you next month. She nods and grabs Izuku as they start walking out. She is overwhelmed. She assumes her boy is as well. The knowledge that he has a quirk, let alone probably the strongest, is both extremely satisfying for the duo, yet entirely terrifying. They don't know exactly what to do. Nonetheless, they continue with their day-to-day lives. Another time skip to the last month. Sorry. The last month of middle school. Izuku has aced all of his tests. He is the most fit in the school, because simply, he wills it. Whenever he goes into his dream realm, or the doctors call it Dreamscape, he's able to change himself, although only momentarily. Changing himself only works for about an hour and a half. That means he can barely do all the tests and stuff before it wears off. Though, it's not that much of a handicap, since what's gonna last more than an hour, right? Haha, jinx. Anyway. He is sitting in class, waiting for the teacher to arrive as he's sorting through his books, and just, doing what he wants. He has been more and more exhausted lately. The bags under his eyes growing into sacks, and that expression on his face, the one in the picture, is exactly what he looks like right now. Purple hoodie, purple hair, just barely getting through the day without passing out. Speaking of which, if the teacher didn't get there soon, he would. He yawns as he's just getting ready to nap, and sadly, the door barges open as the teacher walks through. "Hello, class," everyone in sync says. "Good morning, teacher." Izuku mumbles it under his breath, but it's enough for the teacher to hear. Yawning, Izuku puts his head in his arms and just waits for class to start. The teacher starts with roll call, as attendance is first. He starts listing off names. Katsuki Bakugo, here. Izuku hears from one seat behind him and to the right. Tamari Akari, here. He hears behind him to the left. Izuku Midoriya, he raises his hand and says, here. It sounds more of a mumble through his arms, but the teacher understands and has gotten quite used to Izuku's tired attitude. Alright, now that everyone's signed in, today is the day that we do career aptitude tests. What high school will you be going to? Will you be going to high school? What course will you take if you do go to a high school? Are you going to take the hero course? Everyone cheers and he says, I should have already known. He throws the papers in the air and says, I know you're all going for the hero course. Then he takes another stack of papers from his desk and says, write the three high schools you want to go to the most, ranked from most to least. He starts handing the papers out as everyone writes their stuff. Izuku writes UA High School, because his idol went there. Everyone finishes up writing, and when the teacher gets the papers back, he stands at the front of the class and starts listing off names and schools. Ah, we have two going to UA. People sound a little surprised by this. Yeah, Izuku's fit, but they don't actually know what his quirk is. The only people in the entire school that do is him and the teachers. He has not used his quirk on any of his classmates up until now. The teacher says, Katsuki Bakugo, you're going for UA hero course, right? With a smug look on his face, Katsuki nods. And Izuku Midoriya? Questionable. Everyone at once slowly looks towards Izuku. No one laughs, because in this, even he is okay at stuff. He's not top of the ranks or anything. Because he won't use his quirk. Even in the quirk tests, he will not use his quirk. So, the teachers have to rank him as sort of a quirkless person. But they still rate him with, honest ratings, since he does do very well in the physical aptitude and mental. Oh, well, sorry, I'm extremely tired. Okay. Like I said, they don't laugh, but they all just smirk a bit and then turn away. Unlucky, though. Bakugo does not, as he stands up outraged. Deku? You're gonna try to go to UA? Izuku just mumbles through his arms. Yeah, what of it? You don't even have a quirk! Well, not that we know of. Izuku's just, yet again, too quiet, and no one hears what he says next. But no, it's very insulting. Bakugo seems a little outraged, and is about to walk forward and explode his desk, when suddenly the teacher says, Bakugo, no! Sit down. Bakugo grudgingly does. As the teacher in this world actually has, respect from his students. But Bakugo will not forget that. Shortly after class, Izuku is putting his books in his bag when Bakugo walks up behind him. Rating an explosion, he doesn't expect what comes next. Izuku, standing up suddenly, hits the bottom of Bakugo's jaw, making his head crack backwards. Izuku barely notices as he grabs his bag and walks away. Bakugo, outraged, rushes forward as he throws a kick at the back of Izuku's leg. This does hit, as Izuku falls to one knee, the knee hitting hardly against the concrete and tile floor. Izuku just, ow! He turns around and sees that Bakugo is readying an explosion and says, Fuck! And then his eyes glow purple, as Bakugo's do too. Suddenly the boy slumped to the ground. But shortly after, Izuku stands up as Bakugo gets a bunch of bruises on his body suddenly. He snaps his fingers as Bakugo stands up, gasping for air. Bakugo, stop. Try that again, and you won't get off with a few bruises. You'll get off with missing a limb. And he walks away, with threat doing its acquired task. Izuku happily walks home, but on the way home is attacked. As he is walking under a bridge, the crate behind him rattles as the manhole launches upwards. So fast it impacts the top of the bridge and cracks it. As a bit of debris falls, this is the only thing that warns Izuku. He jumps directly towards the right as he enters his own dreamscape for a mere microsecond, altering himself, giving him 2 times the normal human's acrobatics. He suddenly is back as he is still falling from his jump. He lands and rolls. He immediately turns around to see what is attacking him. A viscous liquid is pouring out of the manhole, with this green, slimy appearance, as 2 eyes and a mouth peek at him. As they smile, they say, You'll make a great skin suit, young one. Come here. Don't throw too much of a fight. As it splashes and splooshes towards him. It is terrifying. Zuko is scared shitless, but he does not run away. He stares danger in the face and says, Fuck you! As his eyes flash purple. The wonderful effect is acquired. The sludge villain turns into a puddle as they are sucked into Dreamscape. This retro-esque area with lines like Tron. Like a Tron world, with the floor being lines of neon, and the sky being a permanent sunset. Zuko smiles at the slime villain, who is currently being stuck in a bottle. Outside the world, we see a bottle form out of nothingness, as the puddle is starting to get sucked into it. Zuko says, Wow, you are disgusting. And he starts to get tired. The longer he's in Dreamscape, the more tired he will be after. Anyway, I think my task is done. He snaps himself out of it as he stands up, rubbing the back of his neck. He walks forward and grabs the bottle. As he looks at it, he notices a figure standing at the manhole, or, well, out near the sewer, as he says, "I am here." Oh, oh my god, is that All Might? He excitedly says as the exhaustion in his eyes immediately fades away just out of pure excitement. He rushes forward as he pulls his notebook out of his bag and says, All Might, can you sign my notebook? As he flips through the pages, he finds the one with All Might's hero costume on it in his description. He hands it to All Might, and All Might happily obliges, as he writes his name, and he says, "And who am I writing it to?" Izuku says, "Izuku Midoriya." He writes it down and says, "Well, Midoriya, are you well, young Midoriya? It is nice to see that... Wait, where did the villain go?" Izuku hands him the bottle with the comically sized villain in it. "Oh, I captured him, using my quirk." All Might seems a little questioning at this and gives Izuku a look. Izuku obliges the unasked question, or the unspoken question, and says, I have a quirk that allows me to access people's minds and then use the minds against them sort of way. I don't have time to explain all of it, but I used it for self-defense. All Might nods and says, "It is not illegal to use your quirk for self-defense. Just make sure you remember, only self-defense." Izuku nods. I have a question." All Might nods. "What does it take to become a hero?" In this world, Izuku doesn't doubt that he can become a hero. He just doesn't know what to strive for. He wants to be a hero that can save people with a smile on his face, but he doesn't exactly know how to get there. All Might says, "Well, young Midoriya, for me, becoming a hero was training, getting results, and making people smile, relieving stress from people in need. Being a symbol of peace." At those words, Izuku fanboys a bit, getting a little lightheaded, but Izuku keeps his wits about him. He says, what do you think I could do to become a hero?" "You have a pretty promising quirk. Train hard, harder than you would want. Then train a little harder. And once you're done, take a nap, then train again. Once you're done with training, eat and then train again." All Might says this with a smile as Midoriya laughs a bit. Any other tips?" "Remember, being a pro isn't only about saving people. It's shameful of me to say, but you also have to make sure you know you can't save everyone." And then, with those words, he takes the bottle from Izuku's hands and jumps away. Izuku, questioning that last line of his, nonetheless is so excited that he met his idol. And then something occurs to him. He did get an autograph, but what wasn't right? He didn't ask the question he's wanted to ask for so long now. He didn't ask for All Might to be his mentor. He needs to go after him, but how? All Might's so fast and flying. He gives up, sadly turning to walk home. When the camera moves and shifts towards All Might in the air as he's jumping away. The bottle starts to squirm in his pocket, and he grabs it out to see what the hell's going on. And he's too busy thinking about the promising young man he just saw to realize that the bottle has a hole in it. Yeah, Izuku made that thing out of his dream energy. It's not perfect. The villain slips out of the hole, and All Might, before being able to capture it again, flies way past, and trying to punch the air with a Detroit smash, just flings himself too far yet again. And he's almost out of time, he thinks. While Izuku is walking home, he suddenly hears an explosion. And being worried that something's going on, he immediately runs towards the explosion with his notebook out, ready to take some notes. When he gets there, he sees a fate that he could have imagined but didn't want to. An image that will be burned into his mind forever after. Something he dreads every day after that happened. He sees two students stuck in the same monster, the same villain that attacked him. He sees Katsuki Bakugo and his friend? The quirkless one. No. Well, I guess we should give him a name. He sees Z stuck in the slime villain aside of Bakugo. The strange thing, though, is Z had a black eye and a bruise on his cheek when Bakugo and Izuku were unscathed from the attack. Realizing that he did not get that bruise from the sludge villain, Izuku is extremely angry. Then he notices the boys are about to run out of oxygen, and does the only thing he can think of. He stares the villain in the eyes as the boys look at him too, and he accidentally drags them in with him. He doesn't much mind, though, as the boys are flung towards him with just a simple gesture. He grabs them by the back of their collars, and he drops them to the ground as he looks at Bakugo with a pissed-off look and says, "If you ever touch one of us again, I'll do what I'm about to do to him, to you." Then he walks forward, as every step he does breaks the ground a bit. And the dreamscape he created this time is a perfect replica of the city they're in. Just the people that were standing around them in the real world are frozen still, and a sort of grey fog has set in. Izuku walks up to the slime villain who is stuck still, frozen like ice. He then grabs some of the sludge as he pulls and distorts, as he tangles with the sludge villain's soul and mind. He morphs the villain into its human form, what it was before its quirk activated. Izuku says, "You've attacked me and my friends today. You might have made it so I met a famous hero and my idol, but I will not spare you because of that. I haven't used my quirk on anyone since I figured it out, but you are a special case, you damned villain." As he snaps his fingers and claws appear on the villain, he stands him up and says, "What I'm about to do to you won't be PG-13, and he snaps his fingers and the cameras in everyone's hands fade away. Of course, this is just the dream world, so it's more for comedic value than anything else. Izuku throws him to his right randomly as the villain impacts a building lit on fire. The fire goes out from the force the villain impacts with. Every bone in the villain's body is shattered to pieces. But when Izuku walks over, he snaps his fingers. As suddenly as the pain began, it ends as the villain's bones reconstruct themselves. And that is more painful than them breaking, as he screams in agony as his bones wiggle together. Once he is healed, Izuku picks him up again and says, "I hate you," and snaps his fingers with the other hand as the villain's neck wrinkles around and pops off. No blood is splattered though, because he doesn't like gore. Then he re-heals the villain again. Alright, I think my point is made. Surrender, I'll do worse. The villain is on his knees begging for mercy and saying that he will never do a bad thing again, that he'll go to prison for life just so that Deku won't hurt him again. Izuku places the villain where he was before and then snaps his fingers as everyone in the Dreamscape leaves it, and their new positions are known as the slime villain was no longer slimy, and the two boys stuck in it are now on either side of Izuku. Izuku stands up, so don't the boys. Izuku frustratingly says, "Get up and go to the damn police officers," sighing and breathing heavily out of exhaustion. He waits for the slime villain, now man, to walk towards the police officers. They don't know what he did to break the villain's will because they couldn't see. All they saw was the villain turning into a human-esque form and getting clothes. Suddenly, just as fast as this incursion happened, it ends as All Might dashes forward, grabs Izuku by the back of his collar, and jumps away. As they're flying, All Might says, "What did you do back there?" For just a split millisecond, I could swear the boys teleported. How did they get to you? Izuku says, "Why, they walked on their own," as he tries to block the wind from his face. "But we didn't see them walk. I moved them through space using my All Might realizes that Izuku's having some trouble with the wind and just maneuvers so he lands on a rooftop not too far away. "Sorry, I used my Dreamscape to move them through space and time." All Might is so just flabbergasted. Okay, whatever that means. I do have to ask, what are you? Izuku says, "A human. Trying to become a hero like you. Doing everything I can." And with this, he passes out. The exhaustion from exerting himself in the Dreamscape was overwhelming, and now he doesn't have anywhere to put the exhaustion. As he passes out, All Might picks him up and jumps towards the hospital. Once they get there, he lays Izuku in the bed and tells the doctor to call next of kin. As All Might waits in the next room, he deforms into Small Boy and waits for what seems to be ages, but in all reality is only 30 minutes as Izuku wakes and his mother gets there. He walks into the room as he says, "Inko Midoriya, I do have to warn you this may be depressing." She, with a scared look, eyes All Might and says, "What do you mean by that?" Izuku used his quirk to attack a villain, and it was not technically self-defense. If the police station wanted to, they could have him arrested and put in juvie. Inko, horrified, says, "They can do that for him saving someone?" As horrible as the laws are, if he doesn't have someone powerful to back him up, he will be put in juvie. She says, do you know anyone that could?" And then she realizes who she's talking to. Would you? I'll do anything," she says, pleadingly. All Might shakes his head and says, "I will, but it will be for him to decide if he allows it." Izuku is about to say, "Obviously," but is stopped when All Might says, "Inko, please leave the room. What I'm about to tell your son is on personal levels." She doesn't believe the audacity of this man for a moment, and then realizes that it's probably for the better. As she steps out, All Might starts telling Izuku everything that will happen. He says, "You have two options, Izuku. You can either give up and go to the police officers for a few years in juvie. We have stopped the worst of damage, but I don't know what you did, but the look in that man's eye said it was bad. Or, I could take you under my wing for a little while. Back you myself, since I'm interested in you. You have a strong quirk, and a good heart. I could tell by the anger and just the way you moved. You ran in there without conscious thought, correct?" Izuku nods. "That's the sign of a hero. Whatever you did in that dreamscape was influenced by anger, which we need to manage if you do join me." Izuku nods his head as he says, "A second option, please. Yeah, I'll join you. What do you expect from me?" All Might simply says, "Train," and smiles as he says, "and then train again." And Izuku stops him there as he says, I get it. Do you think that you have lawyers good enough to stop the entire damn government from going after me?" All Might nods and says, "Yeah, people have wanted my power all along. I think I can stop the government from trying to sneak a peek at yours." Izuku, not quite getting what he means, nods and laughs. And we do a time skip. The next 10 months are just training. And more training. And harder training. At the end of the 10 months, All Might says, "You have impressed me. You have learned to both control your anger and improved your fighting skill greatly. So I'm going to bestow upon you a gift that proves I trust in you. And I will explain this before this happens. Yes, I'm giving him one for all. And you guys are asking, what is so... In a way, yes, but he can only get up to 10 people in his, area. We're trying to make it unkillable here, come on. Anyway. We're giving him a way out for when he's not in Dreamscape. As All Might tells him about his quirk, he says, "My quirk is called One for All. This quirk allows me to pass it on to younger generations and further beyond. It allows me to give a disciple the ability to become the symbol of peace. My quirk has been passed down for generations on generations, with one goal in mind. I believe you should know of it first. It would be selfish of me otherwise. The purpose of One for All is to defeat a villain named All for One." And he basically briefs him on the basics. Izuku nods and listens carefully. As he absorbs all the info, he says, "I'll accept your quirk, gratefully." All Might nods as he says, "You're lucky, you know. If you waited mere few days to meet me, another boy, a few years older than you, would have gotten it." Izuku, with almost a territorial look, says, "Good, I guess I got it first." All Might nods as he plucks a strand of hair from his head and says, "Eat this!" with a smile, and grudgingly, Izuku accepts. As we pick back up, Izuku is walking through the gates of UA High, excited for what the future holds, ready for anything. That is where we end part 1 of What If Deku Had Dreamscape. If you guys enjoyed, leave a like on the video, please, and comment down below telling me what you thought. Also, if you don't mind, you could click that little subscribe button right below my name. And if you don't want it, it's fine. But if you do, then you'll notice there's a little bit of a bell notification sign. Click that as well. It's pretty fun to hear the ding that happens. Alright, well, I'm Hex. You're my cursed army. And I'll see you next time.